A world on the move, trade routes and the great reshuffle. The world is not static. It is a system of flows. Goods, money, power move along specific paths. For centuries, these paths have been predictable. They cut across oceans and continents in familiar ways. But a fundamental shift is underway. A plan to recenter the global economy is taking shape. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is a geopolitical strategy driven by powerful interests. The goal is to move the core of global trade to the Arctic. The Northern Sea Route is its centerpiece. This change matters because it will redefine who is rich and who is poor. It will determine which nations rise and which nations fall. The world we have known for generations is being deliberately dismantled and reassembled. This great reshuffling is not happening by accident. It is a calculated response to a changing world. The post-Cold War era of American guaranteed global security is over. The United States Navy no longer patrols every sea lane for the benefit of every country. This simple fact upends the entire globalized system. Without a global cop on the beat, the world's most vulnerable trade routes become liabilities. Nations with the geography and power to control new, safer routes will gain immense leverage. The Arctic, once a frozen wasteland, is now becoming the most strategic piece of real estate on the planet. Its transformation from a barrier to a highway is the single most important geopolitical development of our time. The implications of this shift are staggering. It is about more than just container ships finding a new shortcut. It is about the very foundation of national power. Nations that control the flow of goods control the global economy. Countries located far from these new northern arteries will find themselves isolated. Their economies will wither. Their political influence will evaporate. The balance of power that has defined the last 70 years is set to be inverted. Russia, Canada, and the Nordic states will see their strategic importance skyrocket. The transition will be messy, chaotic, and often violent. But it is coming. Understanding this plan requires seeing the world as a physical map, not just a collection of abstract economic data. Geography is destiny. The location of mountains, oceans, and choke points dictates the possibilities of trade and conflict. The plan to elevate the Arctic is a direct consequence of this geographic reality. It acknowledges the vulnerabilities of the old system and seeks to build a new one based on geographic advantage and raw power. The coming years will be a test of which nations can adapt to this new map. Those that understand the shift and position themselves accordingly will prosper. Those that cling to the old world order will be left behind in the cold. That's the basic picture. The arteries of wealth. How trade routes build nations. Trade routes are the circulatory system of the global economy. They are not just lines on a map. They are conduits of wealth that build cities and empower nations. When goods can move quickly and cheaply, economies flourish. A shorter, more secure shipping lane acts like a massive tax cut for every business that uses it. Costs drop, profits rise, investment follows. This is not a complex economic theory. It is a simple, brutal reality that has shaped human history for millennia. The ancient Silk Road created empires. The control of sea lanes in the Age of Sail built the British Empire. Nothing has changed. The ability to facilitate trade is the ultimate source of national wealth and power. Look at the numbers. They tell a clear story. The Suez Canal is a perfect example. This 120-mile ditch in the desert is one of the most valuable pieces of infrastructure on Earth. It generates roughly $9 billion in direct revenue for Egypt each year. That is pure profit from tolls. But the indirect value is far greater. It has anchored Egypt's strategic importance for over a century. Similarly, the Panama Canal brings in $4 to $5 billion annually for Panama. These canals are not just waterways. They are national treasures that provide a constant stream of income and geopolitical relevance. Entire cities like Dubai have been built from nothing by mastering the business of trade. Entire cities like Singapore have been built from nothing by mastering the business of trade. These examples show a clear pattern. Where trade flows, prosperity grows. A major port or choke point becomes a magnet for capital and talent. It creates jobs not just for dock workers, but for bankers, lawyers, insurers, and logistics experts. It spawns entire ecosystems of secondary industries. The development of Russia's Northern Sea Route is already creating new towns and industries in the harsh Siberian north. This is how nations are built. They secure a critical artery of commerce and then tax, service, and protect it. The wealth generated from that control allows them to project power, fund their military, and secure their future. The competition for control of these arteries is the great game of international politics. The creation of a new primary trade route through the Arctic will replicate this process on a grand scale. The nations that control the entry points of this route and the exit points will become the new gatekeepers of global commerce. They will have the power to set the terms of trade for a significant portion of the world. The wealth that flows from this control will be immense, funding new infrastructure, advanced militaries, and domestic prosperity. It will create a new northern economic bloc with shared interests and immense collective power. The promise of this wealth is the primary driver behind the push to open the Arctic. It is a prize worth fighting for, and the fight has already begun. Southern discomfort. Why old sea lanes are failing. The old system of global trade is breaking down. Its primary arteries are becoming unreliable and dangerous. Suez Canal, Red Sea. This is not a temporary disruption. It is a feature of the new, post-American world order. Without the United States Navy providing a blanket of security, these narrow choke points are easy targets. State actors. Non-state actors. The recent attacks by Houthi rebels in the Red Sea are not an isolated incident. They are a preview of the future. These attacks show how a relatively small, low-tech group can hold much of global trade hostage. This vulnerability is a fatal flaw in the old system. The consequences are immediate and severe. Major shipping companies are no longer willing to risk their multi-billion-dollar vessels and crews. They are diverting their fleets away from the Suez Canal. The alternative is the long, costly journey around the Cape of Good Hope. This detour adds 10 to 14 days to a typical voyage between Asia and Europe. It burns millions of dollars in extra fuel for each trip. It adds massive costs and uncertainty to global supply chains. These costs are passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices. This disruption serves the strategic goals of those who want to see trade shift north. By making the southern routes non-viable, they make the Arctic route look not just attractive, but necessary. This strategy of manufactured chaos is brutally effective. It exploits the inherent geographic weaknesses of the southern sea lanes. Bab el-Mandeb Strait, Strait of Hormuz, Suez Canal. Any regional conflict can spill over and threaten the ships passing through them. For a power like Russia or an aspiring power like China, fomenting or allowing instability is a low-cost way to achieve a strategic objective. They do not need to win a direct war. They only need to make the old routes too risky to use. The result is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The routes become unsafe. Shipping diverts. The economic case for the Arctic route strengthens. The failure of these southern routes is therefore not just a logistical problem, it is a geopolitical weapon. It is being used to actively dismantle the trade network that has underpinned the global economy since World War II. The instability creates a powerful incentive for businesses and governments to seek out alternatives. As the costs and risks of using the southern routes continue to mount, the logic of investing in the Arctic becomes undeniable. The chaos in the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf is not random noise. It is a signal. It is the sound of the old world order dying and a new one being born in the icy waters of the north. The Arctic route's appeal is rooted in simple, undeniable mathematics. It is shorter, it is faster, and therefore, it is cheaper. For trade between the manufacturing hubs of East Asia and the consumer markets of Europe, the Northern Sea Route is a game changer. Shanghai to Rotterdam via Suez, about 10,500 nautical miles. The same journey via the Northern Sea Route, about 6,500 nautical miles. That cuts the total distance by nearly 40%. Logistics is a world of margins. 40% is revolutionary. Shorter distance translates directly into time savings. The Suez route can take up to 40 days, depending on weather and canal congestion. The Arctic route can slash that travel time to as few as 18 to 22 days. For businesses, time is money. Cutting shipping time in half means goods get to market faster, inventory costs are lower, and capital is tied up for a shorter period. These efficiencies ripple through the entire supply chain, creating massive value. Furthermore, shorter trips mean lower fuel consumption. Fuel is one of the biggest operational costs for a shipping line. Reducing it by a third or more can save millions on a single voyage, adding up to billions industry-wide. The benefits extend beyond just shipping. A warming Arctic is not only clearing sea lanes, it is also unveiling a vast, untapped frontier of natural resources. The U.S. Geological Survey estimates the Arctic holds as much as 13% of the world's undiscovered oil and 30% of its undiscovered natural gas. These are colossal figures. As the ice recedes, these reserves become accessible for the first time in human history. For a resource-dependent nation like Russia, this is a golden opportunity. The Northern Sea Route is not just a transit corridor. It is a lifeline that allows Russia to develop and export these newfound riches, securing its economic future and strengthening its hand on the global stage. Of course, challenges remain. The route is not yet open year-round, and specialized ice-class vessels and icebreaker support are still required. But the momentum is clear. Russia is investing heavily in a new fleet of nuclear-powered icebreakers to ensure year-round navigation by 2030. New ports, search and rescue stations, logistical hubs are being built along its Siberian coast. The practical benefits are so compelling that the investment is seen as a strategic necessity. The combination of dramatic time and cost savings for shipping, coupled with access to immense energy reserves, makes the development of the Arctic route an inevitability. The shift to an Arctic trade route is inextricably linked to a broader assault on the US dollar's role as the world's primary reserve currency. For over 70 years, global trade has been priced and settled in dollars. This has given the United States an exorbitant privilege, allowing it to run massive trade deficits and fund its national debt at low cost. But this system is now under threat. A world where a significant portion of trade moves along a new, non-American controlled axis is a world less dependent on the dollar. This financial dimension is just as important as the physical movement of ships. It is about who writes the rules of the global financial system. A key part of this strategy involves the intentional weakening of the dollar's value. Competitors like Russia and China have been steadily increasing the share of their bilateral trade conducted in their own currencies, bypassing the dollar system entirely. A weaker dollar has a dual effect that benefits a nation like the United States in a deglobalizing world. First, it reduces the real value of the enormous U.S. national debt, much of which is held by foreign creditors. It is a subtle, undeclared default. Second, a cheaper dollar makes American assets look like a bargain to foreign investors. Land factories, technology companies. This can trigger a wave of foreign direct investment, effectively reshoring industrial capacity and jobs back to the United States. This process reorients the flow of global capital. Instead of American money flowing out to build factories in China, foreign money will flow into the United States to buy up assets and build new production facilities. This is a reversal of the globalization trend of the past 40 years. It serves the interests of a United States that is retreating from its role as global policeman and focusing on its own continental security and prosperity. It is a strategy of managed decline on the global stage, coupled with a national industrial renewal at home. The chaos in old trade routes and the pivot to the Arctic helps accelerate this financial reset. This financial shift creates a new landscape of winners and losers. Nations that have hitched their economic fortunes to the dollar-based globalized system will face a painful adjustment. Their dollar-denominated debts will become harder to service. Their access to global capital markets may shrink. Conversely, nations with strong domestic production, secure resources, control over new trade routes will thrive. The world will become more fragmented financially, with competing currency blocks centered around the dollar, the euro, yuan, ruble axis. The move north is not just about geography. It is about rewriting the operating system of the global economy. This grand geopolitical restructuring is not a bloodless exercise on a chessboard. It is built on a foundation of human suffering. The strategy of making southern routes non-viable relies on creating and sustaining conflict. War and instability are not unfortunate byproducts. They are necessary tools. This fuels a thriving war economy. Global arms sales are at an all-time high. Companies that manufacture drones, missile surveillance equipment are seeing record profits. Conflict in the Middle East, conflict in Africa becomes a managed enterprise, kept at a low boil. Old trade routes are made risky, demand for weapons stays high. The human cost is catastrophic. Entire populations are displaced. Homes destroyed. Schools destroyed. Hospitals destroyed. Constant stress and trauma take a devastating psychological toll. In profound despair, people seek escape. This creates fertile ground for addiction. Drug markets flourish where state control collapses. Captagon production in Syria. The fentanyl crisis in North America are symptoms of a deeper geopolitical breakdown. These crises weaken societies from within, making them easier to control and exploit. The cycle leads to loss of state capacity. Governments cannot provide basic services. They cannot protect borders or people. They become hollowed-out, fragile states, open to outside influence. This is the desired outcome. A weak, fractured state in a strategic location is not a threat. It cannot resist larger geopolitical forces reshaping the world. The human tragedy is collateral, or intended, to benefit a few powerful nations. By 2030, this pattern will be entrenched. We will see a world starkly divided. Prosperous northern city skylines, integrated transport and tech corridors, secure ports and guarded borders. To the south, localized conflicts, mass displacement, social decay. This is a neutral assessment of our trajectory. Winners, nations with strategic geography, abundant resources, ruthless foresight. Losers, hundreds of millions trapped in buffer zones, sacrificed for a new global map. Geography is destiny, and the map is being redrawn in ice and steel. Understand the map, and you understand the money and the future. Watch the routes, follow the money.